Early in the morning hours of May 9th, 2022, a neighbor in Ballymun, northern Dublin, heard something unsettling, banging, strange noises echoing through the quiet night. She looked out her window and saw a man in the back garden of Lisa Thompson's home. He was carrying bags, loading them into a vehicle. Then the vehicle drove off toward the main road. The neighbor knocked on Lisa's door 3 separate times. No answer. Another neighbor had also heard banging that night, the gate opening, a vehicle driving away. When she looked out, she saw a light on in the kitchen. Odd for that time of night. May 10th, 2022. The neighbor's concern grew. No contact, no sign of Lisa. She decided to check. The front door was locked. The back door was not. At 3:30 in the afternoon, Lisa Thompson's body was found lying in the rear doorway of her home. The bedroom had been ransacked. 2 knives were missing from the kitchen. Emergency services were called. The scene was preserved. Crime scene examiners arrived. Forensic officers searched the area behind her house. Lisa was 52 years old, a former youth worker, a devoted mother. She called her 2 children her jewels. They lived with their father now, but she and her ex-husband had maintained a good relationship. Lisa had lived at Sandy Hill Gardens for over a decade. She was well-liked, quiet, someone who kept to herself but would help anyone who needed her. A woman with a heart of gold. Now she was dead. Stabbed 11 times in the chest, strangled with a cord from a window blind wrapped around her neck. 6 of the stab wounds had pierced her heart. Her nose and mouth were bloody. A pathologist confirmed she died from the stab wounds to the left side of her chest and strangulation causing asphyxia. The community was stunned. She loved her kids. She loved her life. She was just a genuine, really nice girl. A vigil was held. Candles were lit. People signed a book of condolences. Many women in the area were frightened, worried the killer could strike again. The bedroom had been trashed. Items were stolen. Her wallet, her jewelry. But there were no signs of a break-in. Did she know her killer? Had she let them inside? Lisa was reportedly very careful about who she allowed into her home. A neighbor recalled Lisa locking the back gate behind her in the early hours of the night. A search of her home uncovered prescription tablets worth almost 50,000 euros hidden in the attic in 2 large bags. A neighbor said Lisa had been selling tablets from her house for 15 euros per tray. Maybe 5 or 6 people bought them. Information emerged that her life had become chaotic in the last few months. Despite her reputation as a lovely woman, something had shifted. CCTV became the cornerstone of the investigation. At 2:28 in the morning, a Hyundai was seen traveling down into Sandy Hill Gardens. A female was driving. A male sat in the passenger seat. At 2:50, the man was seen leaving Lisa's house through the back door. He was carrying something. He got into the waiting vehicle, which drove off. The car was then driven into the Apple Green service station on St. Margaret's Road at 3:04. The male was still in the passenger seat. He was going through a red wallet and a red pillowcase, putting items in his pockets. At 3:23, he exited the vehicle and walked toward the hatch, where he counted out money. The car drove off at 3:40. 24 minutes later, it returned and parked. The driver got out and opened the boot. The man got into the driver's side. He appeared to be holding something. The vehicle left at 4:48. The worker at the hatch later described the man dove tattoos on his hands. A very sinister vibe, a bit of energy, seemed happy despite the time of day. He poured bands and a gemmed ring into the tray and offered to sell them for 800 euros, claiming they were worth 3,000. The worker refused. He remembered seeing a green or red gem and a few more bands. The man would not give his name. The worker knew something was wrong. Clearly, he did something wrong to be showing me rings at 2 p.m. in the morning at a petrol station, he said. The man and woman spent roughly 40 minutes there. They appeared to clean or shake out the mats from the car. The car and its occupants were tracked on other CCTV footage. They were seen at the Clayton Hotel at Dublin Airport. Lisa's driving license was found on a slip road on May 10th. The car could easily have been in that area. A search of wasteland beside the Apple Green service station uncovered Lisa's keys and medication in her name. Detective Garda Cahal Connolly had been posted to Ballymun Garda station for 16 years. He knew the residents well. On May 15th, he viewed various clips of CCTV. In one of them, he recognized the man. Since 2005, he had met this man several times through his work. He was under no doubt it was him in the footage. Sergeant Michael Harkin also recognized the man. He too had had various run-ins with him. He knew the minute he saw him who it was. He was recognized by his stature, his tattoos, and the distinctive way he walked. This man was known to Lisa. Brian McHugh had had a casual fling with her in the year before her death. A witness named Allison said she had known Lisa since 2012 when she moved into the area. She also knew Lisa had been casually seeing Brian. A bit of a fling or some kind of entanglement, but it had fizzled out. Lisa and Brian had allegedly gotten back in touch a couple of months before she was killed. Brian McHugh was very well known to the authorities. He had 50 previous convictions, 20 for theft and burglary, 8 relating to drugs, 5 for robbery, 2 for possession of a knife, 1 for criminal damage. Brian McHugh was living with his mother at the time. A search there was carried out. Some of Lisa's missing jewelry was found in the drawer of a bedside locker with her DNA on it. Red was the main color of Lisa's bedding. Footage from the service station had shown him going through a red pillowcase and red wallet. A red pillowcase was found at the home. A jewelry evaluation certificate and a parking stub for the Clayton Hotel were found in the car with his fingerprints on. Brian McHugh's DNA was found on the cord that had been used to strangle Lisa. He was arrested on suspicion of murder. When asked about being at her house during those hours, he gave no comment. He did not deny that he was the person on the footage. He was later charged and entered a plea of not guilty. But he was not there alone. Who was the mystery woman? On Friday morning, a woman was arrested in connection with the investigation, suspected of being the getaway driver and helping him evade capture. Deidre Arnold was a former HSE addiction counselor. She had been in a relationship with Brian. After meeting him, she became addicted to crack cocaine and heroin. She later obtained an interim barring order against him and made reports of domestic abuse. In one instance, she told officers he had broken her arm by holding it on a step and stomping on it. In a recording from November 22, 2021, Brian could be heard threatening that he would cut her throat, calling her vile names, telling her if she got the authorities involved, she was dead. Wind me up one more time and you're dead. Deidre had one previous conviction from 2022 for attempting to drive under the influence of drugs. Following Lisa's murder, Deidre checked Brian into the Clayton Hotel by Dublin Airport. She also allowed her vehicle to be used to get rid of things taken from Lisa's home. Text messages sent to Brian's phone from a number linked to her dated June 18th and 19th, 2022. Not long after Lisa's murder said, "I could have been like Lisa today. Strangle and stab. Look what you done. My arm and 3 pieces of choke marks around my neck." Crucially, details of the strangulation and ligature were not in the public domain when these text messages were sent. Other messages said, "I near-end like Lisa and you tried to kill me. You're an animal." More messages said, "Murder Lisa and all. Move the knife. Did you?" Deidre Arnold was brought before the Dublin District Court and charged with impeding the apprehension or prosecution of the alleged principal offender. She made no reply to the charge and did not speak during the brief hearing. She was remanded in custody with consent to bail under conditions. She was to live at home, observe a curfew between 10 at night and 6:00 in the morning, sign on every Monday and Friday at Raheny Garda Station, surrender her passport, and have no contact directly or indirectly with any witness, including the co-accused. This painted a very dark picture, but it would be for a jury to decide. They would both be tried separately. A pre-trial ruling was made that the evidence from the 2 officers who said they had recognized Brian from the CCTV taken from near Lisa's home should not be included due to their involvement in the investigation. But in what was reportedly the first appeal of its kind, this was overturned by the Court of Appeal. The evidence was restored and would be presented to the jury. It was now time for Brian McHugh to go on trial. Lisa's loved ones arrived at court wearing shirts that said "Justice for Lisa." They were determined to be her voice and to see this through to the very end. In her opening arguments, the prosecutor said a mixed DNA profile was found on the blind cord that had been used to strangle Lisa, and that the accused could not be excluded as a contributor. The chance of the DNA coming from anyone else was 1 in 1,000 million. The prosecution painted a picture of a violent offender who had brutally murdered and robbed a woman he had known before, shamelessly trying to sell her things. The defense attempted to paint Lisa as a woman with secrets, more to her killing than appeared on the surface. Brian's lawyer said a slightly different picture was emerging. Someone who had people coming in and out of the house at all hours of the night and day, where everyone seemed to use the back gate. Everyone seemed to know how to get in. There was no sign of a break-in. Whoever entered did so by invitation or was let in. A far more complex situation than simply someone being found dead in the house. But what about the blind cord? He said his DNA had been there, as he had been in and out of her home for the last 3 years. The prosecution said his excuse for his DNA being on the cord was simply not credible at all. And it was not just the DNA, it was the CCTV. It was the statement from the witness at the Apple Green service station, alongside everything that was known about his violent past and the witness statements from Lisa's neighbors. The prosecution had meticulously presented a tapestry of circumstantial evidence that painted a compelling picture of Brian McHugh's guilt. On February 27, 2025, the jury delivered a unanimous guilty verdict. After deliberating for just under 3.5 hours, McHugh would be sentenced to the mandatory term of life in prison. Lisa Thompson's mother, Bernadette, and sister Ashley were in court as the jury delivered its verdict. Judge Karen O'Connor praised their dignity during the trial process and said they had honored the memory of their daughter and sister. While the trial itself had focused on the evidence, the testimonies, and securing a guilty verdict, the victim impact statements were about something different. It was about giving a voice back to the people who had suffered the most and giving them the chance to speak directly to the court. Lisa's sister Ashley told the court that her sister was in a dark place before her death. But this was not a reflection on how she lived her life. She read victim impact statements into court on behalf of Lisa's son and daughter. Lisa's daughter, who was 12 when her mother was killed, said half their hearts went when their mom died, describing the injuries her mother received as something which could only be seen in a horror movie. She said she would never forget Brian McHugh's evil eyes or his face. "We lost her mom to someone we thought we could trust. Somebody that played with us and laughed and joked with us in the same house where you took her life." Her son said his mother's death had left a ripple of pain throughout the entire family. On March 10, 2025, Brian McHugh was sentenced to life in prison. Judge Karen O'Connor imposed the mandatory life sentence. She said Ms. Thompson's love for her children was palpable during the trial, and she was sure they would be minded by Lisa's loved ones. The judge praised the extraordinary dignity of Ms. Thompson's family and friends, and wished them the best for what she said would be a long and painful road ahead. Judge Karen O'Connor said the loss of a mother, a sister, or a daughter is devastating. But she said that today, Lisa Thompson's family made sure that Lisa's voice was the last voice to be heard in this trial. But what about Deidre? Following McHugh's conviction for murder, his former partner, 42-year-old mother of 3, Deidre Arnold, went on trial accused of impeding his apprehension or prosecution while knowing he committed a murder or similar offense and perverting the course of justice. Arnold had claimed she was in fear of McHugh, who had been abusing her. Around a month after the murder, he broke her arm, and she texted him saying he tried to kill her, that she could have been like Lisa, strangled and stabbed, calling him a murderer and a danger to women. The jury agreed with the prosecution. Deidre Arnold, with an address at Briarfield Grove, Kilbarrock in Dublin, was found guilty by a jury of being the getaway driver on the night that Brian McHugh killed Lisa Thompson in May of 2022. They agreed that she knew he had murdered Lisa and had waited outside for well over an hour before driving him away. She denied knowing that Brian was going to commit murder and also denied any knowledge of him doing it up until the trial. The judge said he had found this difficult to accept given the text sent between her and Brian, She was to remain on bail pending sentencing. He sentenced her to 3 years behind bars with the final 12 months suspended. At her sentencing hearing, a victim impact statement was read out on behalf of Lisa Thompson's 15-year-old daughter, who told Arnold, "Maybe McHugh did abuse you. Maybe you were scared, but that doesn't make you innocent. You had a choice, and you chose to be part of something unforgivable." She described in outplaying before her whole world was shattered, telling Arnold, "You wouldn't understand the pain you brought into our world," after you brought him to a house that was once full of love and laughter, adding, "I hope every time you close your eyes, the silence of the night reminds you of how you silenced my mother's voice." Defense counsel Patrick Gageby said that Deidre Arnold now accepts the verdict and the matter will rest here, adding that she had written a letter to Lisa Thompson's family acknowledging that her actions, no matter how unintentional, became part of something that caused great hurt, and for that she is truly sorry. Lisa Thompson's life was cut short in the most brutal of ways, and her life was taken by someone she knew. Although she had faced challenges and periods of darkness, she remained devoted to her children. Her love for them was constant, and they were always at the center of her world. Lisa had so much more to do, so much more to see, and her story should never have ended like this. The most painful truth is that her children now carry an unbearable trauma, a loss that will shape their lives forever.